D.C. was hit first. Then the evacuation started. Only so many made it out before New York City was hit a few days later. Then there was nowhere to go. Philly was fried, the Delaware River spiked with tons of acid. Even if we could make it to the coast, enemy submarines waited offshore. South Jersey was a veritable island. We were on our own for however long it took the world to finish collapsing around us. I have to admit that I secretly wished for something like this to happen. I expected it to happen, and my greatest fear was that, like all my other expectations, this one would also fail to come true, and I would be forced to live out the rest of my days in utter mediocrity. While everyone else huddled around their battery-powered radios sobbing, I secretly thought to myself, this is the reboot. It felt like I had skipped the grief cycle, gone all the way to acceptance, while most of my family and friends were still in the bargaining phase. They wanted desperately to believe that our great institutions would save us, even as they crumbled to digital dust. So while they slowly came to the realization that their lives would never be the same, I was already preparing for what happens next. 3 months later, I had many ideals on how to survive in this new reality, but no one would take them seriously. One night, I completely lost my shit and ended up crying next to a statue of dead Jesus at the cemetery shrine in East Vineland. Eventually, I decided that I would strike out on my own, head north into the central Jersey wasteland and try to find my friends, Doug, Russ, or even Attila and Noel. There was nothing for me here anyway. Parents were in Florida, probably hysterical over me and Mike. I certainly couldn't live with Mike. Even in the end times, we may end up strangling each other to death. I wouldn't fit in anywhere else. Everyone who was married thought only of the survival of their children. They perched in windows from their powerless homes, aiming guns and shouting threats at any who came near their property. The poor deluded bastards didn't realize the truth. Nobody owns a thing. They only possess it for a time. Everyone who was single I couldn't see shacking up with. The hermit streak ran strong. Once I had accepted that I would always be a loner, that I was free to make my own choices. In a way, those were the best days. No job to slave at, no government to answer to, no more pretending. It was like Camus' The Plague. Under the shadow of 2 mushroom clouds, ordinary life in South Jersey took on a sense of hyper-realness. Children played in the streets. The poorer neighborhoods actually began to share supplies and skills. The bars and clubs filled with those living each day like it would be their last. For many, it was. The invasions changed all that. I think what happened is that death did not come soon enough for those still partying, and the ones who kept living out the old life secretly expected some kind of rescue. When I say the invasions, I am referring in a large sense to whatever is happening outside of our bubble. We still don't know which foreign entity is on American soil, but it definitely has a trickle-down effect. Bandits and rogue mutants from North Jersey have set fire to the Pine Barrens. Pirate boats from Baltimore Harbor have pillaged Sea Isle City. I remember clearly when the 60,000 or so residents of Vineland went completely crazy. There were riots on Landis Avenue, and rival gangs took over all of our Walmarts and Wawas. Instead of pulling together, most people just fell apart. Not us. Mike was the first to go along with my plan. Phil and John just happened to be next door with their parents and babies and the babies' mamas. Becky was down the street with her parents and brother. Even the 3 Snars brothers held up their end of Victory Ave. Phil and I actually made it happen. We snuck through old backyards like it was just another game of late-night jailbreak when we were kids. We made it to the Memorial School parking lot and hot-wired one of the buses. To this day, I can't believe I was the first one to think of doing that. Long story short, we convinced as many people as possible on Victory Ave and the surrounding neighborhood to get on that first bus. Then we drove them back to Memorial School and encouraged them all to take a bus, fill it with more people and supplies, then meet at Mananico Colony. If the city of Vineland proper was no longer forgotten by the outside world, Surely that abandoned acreage of that once thriving colony for morons still would be. By dusk the next day, a mini battalion of school buses paraded down Palermo Avenue, past Rossi School, and into the mysterious Menanico grounds. They'll find us eventually. I realize now that I will never leave this place. I am too needed. Everyone here has found a role. Mine is part-time teacher, full-time shaman. At least, that's how the others now perceive me. For the record, I've been making this whole thing up one precious day at a time. Although, in full disclosure, learning how to communicate with interdimensional entities has helped tremendously. As for the others, my brother Mike has really stepped up. He actually keeps the crazies in check, and under his command they have defended us from 3 separate attacks by rival gangs from Millville. Last week, Mike killed a feral pig with his bare hands. Phil designed a rudimentary sanitation system, and he thinks that after a few raids on some plumbing supply stores, he could make a functioning well happen. Becky's dad is an architect, and he's in his glory organizing the reconstruction of the church and school buildings. Diane takes care of all the animals, and Anita, our resident nurse, heals us humans. Becky and Ben brew us beer to imbibe. Phil's brother John has organized a landscaping project, and my old landlords, Rhonda and Alex, are nurturing gardens teeming with goodies. They remind me of Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania. Last reports from there told of a giant hogweed that was, quote, consciously devouring the surrounding ecosystem. At any rate, our seeds are still pure. I don't know about no hogweed, but I know what I like, and we grow some of the most potent South Jersey swag you'll ever smoke. Amanda cooks for everybody, and her husband Dan does pretty much everything else around here that requires a real man. My Uncle Dennis, an electrician, is the one who made it possible for me to access what's left of the panpsychic egonet to send out this proverbial message in a bottle. Is there anybody out there? As for Center City, Vineland, Landis Theater and the adjacent Eastside Motel are festering dens of perverse iniquity. The only building still intact and undamaged is Sacred Heart Church. I often go there to sit in the bell tower and pick off zombies with a lightning gun. Only a fool would think that we're completely isolated. We must be ever vigilant in case of attack. The fire is dimming. I'm tired. Survival pushes thoughts of the past away, and I never cared much for the future. Right now, I can hear the rain beating on the metal frame of the number 42 school bus that I've called home for the last 3 years. The children are asleep. They tell me they dream of their mother. I dream of her too, sometimes. Maybe someday I will see my crew from up north again, or maybe they're all mutants. One thing is certain. Every day I open my eyes, grateful and with a sense of purpose. The rest, they once said, is history.